Good morning, dear friends and colleagues. We are so happy that you are here. This is the third day of the World Applied Anthropology Conference, and this is a very special day. We are honoring our friend, teacher, mentor, everything to us, Dr. Michael Crawford. First of all, I would like to thank the World Applied Anthropology Congress Organizing Committee for giving us this opportunity. And WAC is being organized through a collaboration between KU, especially IPSR, and Department of Anthropology, and the Anthropological Association for Humankind. And today, it's very, very special. In India, we have a saying, Acharya Devo Bhava. According to Indian tradition, teachers are equated to God. And so, for us, or to me, Dr. Michael Crawford is, like a God. He has done he contributed extensively to the growth of his students, and his students are all over the world, okay? And currently, he is emeritus professor in the Department of Anthropology. And I cannot talk about his, outstanding academic and research accomplishments. Everybody knows him. Dr. Crawford's unique academic stature mirrors his true academic and research commitments to theory and method and their practical applications to real-world populations. While we were graduate students, there used to be a number of books, Tlaxcaltir. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. I used to go and ask Tony, what is this book about? And Tlaxcaltir. Then Black Kharifs, and his theory and method book. A number of books, he is like a library, an encyclopedia, and everything is there, We were so blessed to be there in LBA and learning what is anthropology, especially anthropological genetics, how anthropological genetics theory and method can be applied to address human problems, human issues, including, human health and disease. A number of publications he has, and not surprisingly, he was the recipient of a Franz Boyer's Distinguished Achievement Award, given by the Human Biology Association, and also he was a recipient of the Charles R. Darwin Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 on behalf of the American Association of Biological and Physical Anthropologists. And as you can see here, Dr. O'Rourke is there, and Dr. Crawford, he was receiving the award from one of his students, Dr. O'Rourke. And, we cannot talk about his contributions to anthropological genetics. So many. He's a towering figure, no exaggeration. He's a towering figure in the anthropological genetics. He has done extensively. According to him, anthropological genetics is a synthetic discipline that applies the methods and theories of genetics to evolutionary questions posed by anthropologists. What are these questions? They can be related to evolution, human health and disease, and complex disease genetics, and a number of things are there. And I used to think, anthropology means something like a rock and a culture. But after meeting Dr. Crawford and learning all these things, we thought that anthropology is not a simple discipline. It's a wonderful discipline, and it has so many. It is a multifaceted discipline, and we are very, very thankful to him. The best example is the impact he has on students. A number of his students are in very, very high positions. For example, Dennis O'Rourke, he is the head of the Department of Anthropology, and Dr. Tony Camuzzi, he is the executive officer of the Obesity Society, and of course, Karina, Lorena Madrigal, the number goes on. So many students, and of course, one of the keynote speakers, Dr. William Leonard, he was also his postdoctoral fellow. He did a lot of work, together with the Dr. Crawford. As you can see here, actually, Bill showed it earlier, it's a famous photo. The stalwarts in the area of anthropological genetics. They're all here, and here is Dr. Crawford, looking like a movie actor, right? so, so these books, they used to be like Bibles to us. We would go open the books and try to understand the mathematics. I will give you one example how difficult it was. It was my first class from Dr. Crawford. I went to the classroom. Tony and Dr. Crawford, they were talking something about population structure. I couldn't understand a single bit. That evening I went home and told to my wife, let us pack up the luggage and go back to India. He said, why? Why? They are talking something in French, I couldn't understand a single bit, So if I cannot understand a single bit, how would I be able to complete a PhD program? Then my wife said, no, with high enthusiasm you came here, talk to Dr. Crawford and try to complete the program. Don't run away, from here. Okay? And of course, Dr. Crawford's exceptional dedication and commitment towards his students and peers. It's amazing. And there are so many examples, A true sign of an exceptional mentor and teacher is an established record of utmost concern, true dedication and commitment to the growth and success of his students. His or her students. Dr. Crawford was popular with graduate students at the University of Kansas, not only from the Department of Anthropology, but also from other departments such as genetics, the hallmark of an outstanding all-round academic and research career. Dr. Crawford's stature in the field of anthropological genetics had a tremendous influence on attracting high-quality students to KU. He was an excellent teacher and was well known for his high-quality classroom lectures that were very well received by his students, and he was outstanding in discussing complex scientific topics with his students with ease, as well as in communicating these topics in very simple ways. It is not uncommon for Dr. Crawford going the extra mile to provide additional tutoring, inspiration, motivation, encouragement and support for his students, and he was always available for graduate, academic, and research advising. In addition to the academic supervision, Dr. Crawford always paid utmost personal attention to the needs and welfare of his students. I would like to give two examples. I was a fresh graduate student. It was 1990 American Association of Physical Anthropologists meeting. He was cautioning me, Ravi, you always do things in the 11th hour. Please complete the slides. That was my first conference in America. And it was the day before we left for the meetings. I was bugging Tony, my slides are not yet ready. Dr. Crawford is asking me again and again about the slides. Tony said, okay, let us go to my wife, Diana Kamuji's office and prepare the slides. And we were only able to prepare 5 slides. There were 10 more. It was already 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. Tony said, Ben, we'll miss our flight. Let's get back, So then the remaining slides were done, in Miami. And I went to the podium and I gave my slides to one of the guys, there and at the projector. In those days, they used to have slide decks, right? So you need to put, those slides upside down. I didn't know. I gave, boom, isonomy, everything is upside down. I was only there for maybe 3 or 4 slides. I left the podium abruptly. Dr. Crawford was sitting right in front of me, and he was looking at me. I left the podium. I got, disappointed. Tony and I used to have another friend. These guys were standing at the corner and laughing at me. What is this guy doing? So I stepped out of the room. I think it was Professor Gabriel Lasker. I was really, with tears, I was standing and almost crying. Professor Lasker, I think it was, he came to me and said, son, don't get disappointed. Life goes on. There will be upside downs. Don't worry. Don't take it as an example. I heard that you are Mike's student. He's a great guy, and you will do one of the best jobs. Don't worry. Then I came back in the department. I wanted to punish myself for my stupidity. I asked Dr. Crawford, I don't want to sit with Tony. Let me sit, in the closet. He said, it's a closet. Don't sit there. I was really, I went there and, then he came to me one day, he called me to his office. I went to his office. Why are you sitting there? I said, sorry, sir, it was a blunder. I did not listen to you. And I don't want to get emotional. Whatever he said, I'm here today for what he said. Okay? That is an amazing thing for me. And one more example, as foreign students, we don't have anybody here other than our friends and teachers. He was, every time he was there. When my son was born, he was there. And in my difficult times, he helped me. So, thank you so much, sir. And I would like to conclude this talk by taking, 3 quotes. The first one is from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. With education, you can change the world. And there is another quote from Solomon Ortiz. Education is the key to success in life, and teachers make a lasting impact in the lives of their students. Okay? And the third quote is from William Ward. And what it says, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. Okay? And his legacy and impact, it is everlasting. Dr. Crawford, you are going to be there in our lives. Whatever we learned from you will be given to our next generations, and very thankful to you. And I would like to take this moment to honor you with small felicitation-like thing. If you can come to the dais, we would like to do some small ceremonies. Yeah. Should I? Yeah. Okay. Geeta? Yeah. Could you please come? Could you please come and honor Dr. Crawford? No, it's okay.
Okay. My goodness. Such beautiful flowers.
Please come in the middle of the
Middle?
Okay. Okay.
Also, no, sir. I am going to do one Indian tradition here. Usually, we honor people like Dr. Crawford with the shawls, okay? And I would like to invite William Leonard on behalf of postdoctoral fellows and collaborators. And I would like to invite, no, only one. Yeah. You both, you both. Yeah. And Lorena Madrigal on behalf of Dr. Crawford's Mafia students, okay? I would like to invite both of them to honor Dr. Crawford with a shawl.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Am I supposed to put it on?
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Michael.
The photos.
Thank you very much. Forever so well. You've been a tremendous friend over the years.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Anthropological Applications for Humankind organization, unfortunately, the President and General Secretary of the association couldn't join us because of visa problems. Actually, almost 40 to 50 people couldn't come because they were unable to get the American visas. So it's so unfortunate. And I would like to invite on behalf of the Anthropological Association for Humankind, the Vice President of the organization's board dean, and also I would like to invite Rector Arya, one of Dr. Crawford's students. He is the co-chair of the Program Publication and Proceedings Committee. I would like to invite both of them to come over here and respect Dr. Crawford with a shawl.
goodness. Thank you. Good to see you.
Dr. Crawford.
Thank you.
Thank
Mark.
you.
Good to see you. Okay. Boy, I'm really honored.
Yes, sir. Don't go. Don't go.
I want to capture this movement.
Thank
The
you.
camera didn't blow up?
Don't go, sir. One more minute. I would like to invite Dr. Dennis Warurk and Dr. Anthony G. Camuzzi and Dr. Kerry North to come over here to honor Dr. Crawford with a plaque. And I also request all of his students and collaborators to be with us when the the trophy is being given to Dr. Crawford. Amma. Geeta? Join me.
Yeah. So while we wait for everybody to get up here, let me read.
Yeah, please come. All of Dr. Crawford's students, collaborators, postdocs, please come. Please come.
Story of my life.
To get my arms long enough. So the plaque reads, to our beloved Professor Michael H. Crawford, for your exceptional mentorship, commitment, and accomplishments in anthropological genetics and beyond, with gratitude, love, and affection from your students, colleagues, and friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me take my place where I usually
Where's MJ?
MJ, please come. One more. MJ, come.
I'm coming.
Cheese, whiskey.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Wow, we're the best.
When I give a talk, I will. Thank you, Ravi.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amma, get that, Jack. Follow. I would like to say one word about the trophy. Me, and of course, I informed some of my colleagues, we are going to honor Dr. Crawford. And myself and rector, we went to a trophy place. And one of my colleagues accompanied us. His name is Dr. Srinivas Mummadi. He's a faculty, and he's a professor in our research group. We three went there and we were selecting, the plaque and what should be written and everything. My colleague Srinivas Mummadi, he has heard a lot about Dr. Crawford. He said, can I sponsor it? I said, no, we have money to buy it. No, I have heard a lot about him. At least let me do this thing. That's what, So I'm remembering, him, Srinivas Mummadi at this point. And thank you so much. And our next speaker is Dr. Anthony G. Camuzzi, and he's going to talk about Dr. Crawford's outstanding contributions to anthropological genetics and beyond. That beyond is very, very important. I'm pretty sure he's going to talk about beyond also. Tony?
Well, thank you, Ravi, and thanks for this opportunity to speak this morning. I'm Tony Camuzzi, and as Ravi mentioned earlier, I'm currently the Chief Executive Officer of the Obesity Society. But today, more importantly, I'm one of Mike's former students. And so like Ravi was saying, we're going to talk about the beyond. So the Obesity Society is a scientific professional organization of about 3,000 members, representing basic scientists, clinicians, public health, and policy individuals as well. I'd been a member myself through my research for almost 30 years when I took this position 6 years ago. So I left the lab and have taken on an executive role. But I wanted to talk about, like I said, like Ravi said, the beyond component of this. And there's some interesting things that, everybody here, I think, is aware of Mike's impact on anthropological genetics. But there's another field he had an extraordinary impact on that he may not even appreciate the depth to which he impacted that. So while Michael was working with others to develop what became the field of anthropological genetics, about the same time, there were people developing what became genetic epidemiology. And Mike's contribution in that area is really quite extensive. So just a quick history, and sort of unbeknownst, was the fact that the coursework that he had all of us do, very heavy emphasis in biostatistics, advanced statistics, quantitative genetics, all of these things were key to what was going to be going on in in genetic epidemiology. And early on, there were no formal programs of genetic epidemiology. But if you were going to have developed a formal program in genetic epidemiology, it would have looked like the curriculum that Mike put together for all of us. So, there were some early indications of where this was going to go. Dennis did his postdoc at Washington University in St. Louis with Mike Suarez and Ted Wright. And shortly after that, one of Mike's other early graduate students, doctoral students, Frank Lee, had a graduate student himself, a doctoral student, John Relaford. John became the first postdoc at what at that time was the Southwest Foundation for Biomedical Research. John Vanderberg, who later became scientific director there, but he started that department. The first person he hired actually was John Relaford. And so John was the first of many of us who ended up there. Shortly after that, John then hired Gene McClure and Bennett Dyke, both from Michigan, so interconnections with the program at Michigan and all at that point. One of the other two early postdocs that got hired at that institution were Sarah Williams Blangiero and John Blangiero. Sarah was a former doctoral student of, I just blanked on her name, Pamela Byard. No, Elizabeth, Sarah was with Pam, and John was with Cynthia. But so anyway, that was continued that connection. So when I was looking to finish my degree and what my next steps were, I had been introduced to John and Sarah and the other folks at the foundation, was aware of that opportunity, and decided to pursue that, which I think was, to my benefit, a great decision. But following shortly behind that, Ravi joined us. Carrie came not long after that. My first postdoc was Lisa Martin, who was one of Mike's students. So she was with us for a while. And I've lost count, actually, of the people who came through the department and have since gone on, and some have stayed with various individuals. I know it's not the best metric to give you an idea of the impact on a field, but just among the few of us that are here today, if you check the literature, that accounts for about over 1,200 publications in genetic epidemiology, all focused in coronary artery disease, obesity, diabetes, other related conditions. So, like I said, if we had set out with the goal to become genetic epidemiologists, we couldn't have started at a better place. So, Mike, thank you for your foresight and your encouragement and your support over the years.
Our next speaker is Professor Felix Moos, and the title of his presentation is Some Anthropology Reminiscences in 2023. We used to see Dr. Moos. He used to come quite often to Dr. Crawford's office, and he's, they have been very close friends, and he's going to give his presentation. Dr. Moos, thank you.
Well, I should say namaste to all of you remembering the many years I spent in India. What I want to talk about today is really that Michael Crawford and I have so many things in common. We both, in a sense, are refugees. Michael Crawford was born in China, and eventually, after 1949, his family had to leave China. They first went to a refugee camp in the Philippines, then they moved on to Australia, and Michael started high school in Australia, I believe, and then eventually they came to Seattle, where his mother became a kind of artist, and Michael went to high school and eventually ended up, like I did, at the University of Washington. So I want to talk about today what choices that we make influence our lives. We came from the same department, the Department of Anthropology at the University of Washington. In some ways, we had the same teachers, but our careers became very different, and therefore I would mention to you that choices that humans make are tremendously influential. The University of Washington and Thompson Hall, and I'm sure Michael remembers, was a stellar department in the 1950s. I arrived there after my service in the Korean War as a GI Bill student at the University of Washington in 1955. Michael is 10 years younger than I am. I am 94, he is 84. So we are both survivors in a way. And I remember Thompson Hall in a very different way, because Michael went on to associate himself with people like Stanley Gartler and Motolsky, who was in the medical school. I found a paradise in what was then called the Far Eastern and Russian Institute. Of course, since I'm German-born and I came to the US in November 1948, so my history is slightly different, because in 1948 I came in the third group of German students to come to the United States. I remember coming to Ohio State, where it was tested how much English we knew, how much chemistry or physics we knew, and then we had to write an essay, what democracy means to you. And I remember I wrote an essay of one sentence, and I think I'm here still after 70 years in the United States, because I wrote, democracy doesn't mean anything to me, but I'm so willing to learn. So obviously our destinies were somewhat different, because for me the University of Washington was not just a place where I learned physical anthropology at that time. We both had a monumental person that was teaching physical anthropology at the time. Obviously, anthropology in the 1950s was very different. I did field work in Montana taking blood from Native Americans. At that time, it was blood types and ABO, positive or negative. And because the Flathead Indians relied so heavily on income from the Hungry Horse Town, I had to take blood because they had to prove they were at least 64% Native American. I learned how difficult it is to take a little bit of blood from an earlobe of a Native American, because it was like leather. And one of the chiefs told me, Felix, why don't you go to the hospital? There's lots of blood. Why are you bothering to take it from the ears? Secondly, I was involved in Fred Holtz's. Professor Holtz was a member of the Academy of Sciences. He's one of the real early giants, really, of physical anthropology, what is now biological anthropology. He was doing studies on Japanese and Japanese Americans, and he did a field study of Swiss Italians, and he needed an interpreter. I was his TA for 4 years, and not only that, I was his translator because obviously he went to Switzerland, he talked to Japanese Americans, and I was very helpful. Not only that, I taught his 2 sons to ski, because when I came to the University of Washington, Michael says he played soccer occasionally. I became a member of the Husky ski team. I was a downhill skier for the University of Washington. So in a sense, we have so much in common. But Michael chose a different path. For me, the Far Eastern and Russian Institute was paradise, because the great giants of the 1930s in Germany who had become refugees were at the University of Washington. I became cognizant that anthropology on the East and West Coast was very different. University of Washington was very different from Harvard. So I learned, and Michael and I remember Thompson Hall maybe in different ways. Professor Watson, Jim Watson, who became the chairman in 1955, was in the same position as anthropology at KU occasionally was. So Joe Nagel was in the same position as Jim Watson. Namely, anthropology was in receivership. They were told, change anthropology department in some way. And Jim Watson obviously did, in my view, an excellent job. When I was in Japan, he came to visit me, and I thought Jim Watson was an excellent anthropologist. I did my MA on Okinawa because I arrived in the US, as I said, in November 1948. Barely 18 months later, I was in my second war. Obviously, I was in Germany during World War II, so I'm probably a person that experienced choices from 2 different sides. But Michael and I basically are refugee, and I applaud him what he has accomplished. I must remind you that the University of Washington, this was a collection of giants. Nicholas Pope was the foremost person in Mongol studies. Obviously, George Taylor, the director of the Institute, was the assistant director of the Wartime Information Office. He collected all these Chinese, Tibetan, German, French refugees and brought them to the Far Eastern and Russian Institute. So obviously, I met the giants who translated the I Ching. I met the giants who wrote about Mongols long before anybody thought of it. So I was in heaven in a different way from Michael because I was skiing. He played soccer. I was in the Far Eastern and Russian Institute, and he chose to associate himself closer with the medical school and people. But Fred Holtz, I think, was the forerunner of what is happening today, because Fred Holtz was interested in genetics, but his money came from a longitudinal study where I did anthropometry. His money came from the Department of Interior taking blood from Indians in Montana. So what I want to tell you is that choice makes such a difference. And I'm so glad to see that Michael is honored by all of these students. And people should recognize what academics contribute. This is not always done in the same way. Obviously, eventually, our path was very different. I was teaching at the University of Tokyo in 1960, and in walked this very tall person. And because physical anthropology in Japan in the 1960s was German, the textbooks were German, so I was hired to teach Japanese students German anthropological expressions. So anyway, I was in a class, and in came this very tall American and sat down, and after the class was over, he said, "Well, Felix, pretty good class. How would you like to come and teach in Kansas?" I had no idea where Kansas was. I never heard of Kansas. So make a long story short, I think that is where our destinies again converged. The University of Kansas at the time in 1961 had no anthropology. We were hired in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. But Professor Clark, who was the chair of sociology, was a very independent scholar, a great person. He was a jazz musician. He had graduated from the University of Chicago, and he really worked tirelessly. Well, anyway, so I found myself in Lawrence, Kansas in the fall, September 1961. It was a very different town. You couldn't have liquor in a restaurant. The University of Kansas was relatively small, maybe 12,000 students, 15,000. Certainly it was not the same. We had to wear a tie to teach. We had to visit our seniors on Sunday to pay our homage to the scholars. So the place was a very different one. So move up to what happened to anthropology, and obviously what Michael eventually did is connected to the 5 people who became an independent department of anthropology in July 1964. Just remember that in 3 years, 5 people, the 5 people who were the Department of Anthropology was Carlisle Smith, who was the senior. It was Robert Squire. It was William Bass. It was John Cole, and it was Felix Moos. 5 people. And we eventually went to the dean endlessly and said, we must have a Department of Anthropology. So the department really started in July, and by the next year, obviously, we had the first incoming students. I don't know how many of you know anything about the museum. Professor Hall was a very critical person. He interviewed personally anybody because our Department of Anthropology moved from the Quonset huts to the museum. And Professor Hall, this was his museum. The 5th floor was his floor. He gave all of us an interview. And when it came to my interview, eventually he said, well, you seem to know foreign languages, and your math apparently is not bad, so you can come to the 5th floor of the museum. So we started this department with 5 people. Michael came 10 years later in 1971, and obviously Michael has accomplished a gigantic work. I want to close by simply mentioning something that people don't often mention. The organization of humankind may not be around if we don't have humankind. Today we have 13,000 devices of nuclear energy. Russia has about 6,000. The United States has about 5,000. China, we don't know, has about 3,000. In any way, 13,000 nuclear devices are enough to blow up the world 72 times. It may well happen if we don't pay attention. In the United States, currently we have 582,000 homeless. Only 77% of young Americans could pass the physical for the United States military. Supposedly, all Americans of 18 have 30 days to register for the draft. How many are actually registering? It changes from maybe 10% to 70%, whatever politics you ascribe to. But I want to leave you with the idea that today in the United States military, and at 94, I'm still working actively at Fort Leavenworth. Only 1% of the American population is in the US military. 1% of the American population is actually in the military. The military today, just like academia and the rest, we are divided. We can't talk to each other because we don't trust each other. So my message to all of you and the students that Michael should be so proud of is carry the message. If humankind is not coming to the conclusion that war, and I participated in 3 wars on 2 different sides, if you don't recognize that war is an insanity that we can't let happen, we won't have an organization of humankind. So thank you for having me to remind you of a few facts, because I remember so well, I did video conferences about anthropology at KU, and in 2001, I did this interview with Michael, and we both can see we have aged since then. So thank you very much for having me. I'm proud and I'm happy for Michael that I could be part of this celebration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moose. Thanks a lot. It was fantastic, right? It goes back in time. And thank you so much, Dr. Moose. Now I would like to invite Dr. Crawford to come over here and give us, some special remarks.
Okay. Mine is WAAC, that one up there?
Oh, the top one?
Right.
Coalesce.
No, it's the-
WAC symposium.
that one, yeah. No? Problem is we all named the same thing. Symposium, yeah, that's it. No? We all named our websites the same. No. Yeah. There you go, okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. No problem. After Ravi's wonderful introduction, I should have been able to float over here, but being so immune compromised, I had to sort of slowly walk. Okay, now, when Ravi asked me to give a presentation and say a few words, since this is really a, thank you. Since this is a sort of a thank you to me and some of my students, I'll talk about 3 topics, give you a little more information about my academic background, how I got to do what I'm doing, and the training I received. I'll talk a little bit about research initiated at the Laboratory of Biological Anthropology over 50 years. And if you're interested, I have a new book coming out with Oxford University Press shortly, and it's entitled In Search of Human Evolution, and it documents what we've done for 50 years at KU, and each chapter is a separate study of genetics in separate different parts of the world. And the third...
Very different town. You couldn't have liquor in a restaurant. The University of Kansas was relatively small, maybe 12,000 students, 15,000. Certainly it was not the same. We had to wear a tie to teach. We had to visit our seniors on Sunday to pay our homage to the scholars. So the place was a very different one. So move up to what happened to anthropology, and obviously what Michael eventually did is connected to the 5 people who became an independent department of anthropology in July 1964. Just remember that in 3 years, 5 people, the 5 people who were the Department of Anthropology was Carlisle Smith, who was the senior. It was Robert Squire. It was William Bass. It was John Cole. And it was Felix Moos. 5 people. And we eventually went to the dean endlessly and said, we must have a Department of Anthropology. So the department really started in July, and by the next year, obviously, we had the first incoming students. I don't know how many of you know anything about the museum. Professor Hall was a very critical person. He interviewed personally anybody because our Department of Anthropology moved from the Quonset huts to the museum. And Professor Hall, this was his museum. The 5th floor was his floor. He gave all of us an interview. And when it came to my interview, eventually he said, well, you seem to know foreign languages, and your math apparently is not bad. So you can come to the 5th floor of the museum. So we started this department with 5 people. Michael came 10 years later in 1971, and obviously Michael has accomplished a gigantic work. I want to close by simply mentioning something that people don't often mention. The organization of humankind may not be around if you don't have humankind. Today we have 13,000 devices of nuclear energy. Russia has about 6,000. The United States has about 5,000. China, we don't know, has about 3,000. In any way, 13,000 nuclear devices are enough to blow up the world 72 times. It may well happen if we don't pay attention. In the United States, currently we have 582,000 homeless. Only 77% of young Americans could pass the physical for the United States military. Supposedly, all Americans of 18 have 30 days to register for the draft. How many are actually registering? It changes from maybe 10% to 70%, whatever politics you ascribe to. But I want to leave you with the idea that today in the United States military, and at 94, I'm still working actively at Fort Leavenworth. Only 1% of the American population is in the US military. 1% of the American population is actually in the military. The military today, just like academia and the rest, we are divided. We can't talk to each other because we don't trust each other. So my message to all of you and the students that Michael should be so proud of is carry the message. If humankind is not coming to the conclusion that war, and I participated in 3 wars on 2 different sides, if you don't recognize that war is an insanity that we can't let happen, we won't have an organization of humankind. So thank you for having me to remind you of a few facts, because I remember so well, I did video conferences about anthropology at KU, and in 2001 I did this interview with Michael, and we both can see we have aged since then. So thank you very much of having me. I'm proud and I'm happy for Michael that I could be part of this celebration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moose. Thanks a lot. It was fantastic, right? It goes back in time. And thank you so much, Dr. Moose. Now I would like to invite Dr. Crawford to come over here and give us, some special remarks.
After Ravi's wonderful introduction, I should have been able to float over here. But being so immune compromised, I had to sort of slowly walk. Okay, now, when Ravi asked me to give a presentation and say a few words, since this is really a... thank you. Since this is a sort of a thank you to me and some of my students, I'll talk about 3 topics, give you a little more information about my academic background, how I got to do what I'm doing and the training I received. I'll talk a little bit about research initiated at the Laboratory of Biological Anthropology over 50 years. And if you're interested, I have a new book coming out with Oxford University Press shortly, and it's entitled In Search of Human Evolution, and it documents what we've done for 50 years at KU, and each chapter is a separate study of genetics in separate different parts of the world. And the part of my talk today is going to be, I'm going to talk about, excuse me, graduate students and some of the postdocs who worked with me over the years. So, first, as far as my own personal training is concerned, I was born of Russian-Scottish parents in Shanghai, China. Russian was my first language. I had to learn English in grade school, which was quite an experience. I experienced Japanese occupation of Shanghai, forced to migrate to a displaced person camp because my father lost his US citizenship and we were stateless, and so the only place we could go when Chairman Mao came on the scene was to the Philippine Islands, and there were about 5,000 Russians on the Philippine Islands from Shanghai. Then from there, we relocated to Australia, and I started high school in Australia, and then from Australia, because Australians didn't think that immigrants, Russian immigrants or whatever, should go on to universities and get special training, and I was put into a high school where woodwork and metalwork were the primary areas. My father, who was an engineer, ended up digging ditches throughout his entire time in Australia. So we left Australia and came to the US. Okay. Now my training, as Ravi and also Felix most mentioned, was mainly at the medical school. I was very fortunate in that I had 3 faculty members. 2 of them were National Academy of Science members. This is Stanley Gartler and Arno Matulski, and Derek Roberts, who's very famous for his work on Tristan da Cunha and in Africa, and Marshall Newman, who came the last year of my graduate career, and his specialty was Native American populations, and that's how I got interested in Native American populations. And if we can look at the academic connections, and if you'll excuse my tracing myself all the way to Darwin, which I shouldn't, but I do, you can see, let's see if there's a, where's the, trying to get the, this is just a, okay, anyway, do you have a,
It's right there,
oh, am I missing something? No, it's light also. Okay, thank you. Modern technology has left me behind, I'm afraid. Anyway, so, oops. And most people, to get more than one specialist or training from more than one specialist, have to go to other universities. I stayed at Washington and they all came to me. Okay, and I was very fortunate in that I was Derek Roberts. Oops, let's see, what is this? As I said, I'm afraid, let me just go back to this. Well, this thing doesn't seem to want to expand. Yeah. Okay, now which is the...
Let me go to here,
Yeah, to this
from
one
the
here.
beginning.
Right. Well, just to this, yeah.
Yeah, then go to here,
Okay.
here, this one,
Okay, that's one.
Here.
The one. Okay, that's fine.
right?
That's
Yeah, this
good.
one.
Thank you, Barbie.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anyway, I remained at Washington, and I was very fortunate in being able to work with Stanley Gartler. I think he's still alive. Arno Matulski, who's sort of the head of the father of pharmacogenetics, and also Marshall Newman, who came last. And you can actually trace just them back to Houghton, to Herlichka, some of the fathers of physical anthropology. Okay, let's go on. Oops. Okay. Yeah, this is Arno Matulski. Yeah, well, no, it's all right. I'll continue. Okay, that's fine. I'm on it now. Okay, this is my first lecture that I've given since 1979, 2017. It seemed like 1979. 2017 when I retired, or 2019 when I retired. I was also very fortunate in not only working with Garn, who trained me in human genetics, Matulski in biochemical genetics, but also Derek Roberts, and this is Derek, and Eric Sunderland in Zagreb. Eric died just shortly also. Now, some of you might ask, why am I doing field research in all these different areas, okay? And this is the real reason. I had an arrangement made with one of the chiefs to eat my students, but most of them managed to escape anyway. In terms of research interests, I guess I could divide my research into genetic epidemiology, reconstruction of human history, and primate phylogeny and genetics. And there are a whole number of projects, from hypertension on St. Vincent Island to causes of lymphoma in baboons in Sukhumi, to biological aging and longevity in Mennonites of the Midwest, to HTLV antibodies on St. Vincent Island together with Bob Gallo and Blattner, and we've published an article on that, tuberculosis in Chihuahua, and a rare form of diabetes mellitus, which we call 1.5. In the reconstruction of human history, I've worked with the Americas, origin of Irish tinkers, travelers, or travelers is probably a more polite way of saying, settlement of the Aleutian Islands, Siberia, and then my dissertation topic was actually on primate phylogeny and genetics, the molecular genetics of primate phylogeny with Matulski. In terms of field research, and I want to stress the importance of field research in anthropological genetics and anthropology in general, because it provides comparative data. You can test hypotheses in very different environments as far as how the genes are expressed. My very first work was in the Italian alpine villages, Acelio, Valmaira, in just south of Torino. My second one was the Tlaxcaltecan populations of Mexico, and this came about from a conversation with a cultural anthropologist by the name of Hugo Nutini, who had been working with the Tlaxcaltecans for many, many years, and he pointed out to me that they actually formed an alliance with Cortez in the contact, and then after that they were used as garrisons and as examples to the different populations in Mexico. And so 300, 400 years ago they got moved to places like Saltillo and to the next valley, Quanalan. And so this was a great possibility for looking at what happened to them genetically, given 300 years, what happened to them morphologically, what happened to them culturally, given this separation of 400 years. And this is Valmaira. It's tremendously picturesque. And I was looking at reproductive isolation and its breakdown there. And these are the graduate students from University of Torino in Italy that worked with me on this. Now, the population of Valmyra refused to give blood samples or anything of that sort, and so we ended up only doing sort of biodemography, and that had to use that. For Tlaxcala, the city of Tlaxcala, we looked at mestizos there. They were the only, this was a center that was created by the Spanish, and so pretty high frequency of Spanish genes. Now, the population of the city of Tlaxcala was not interested in working with us. They didn't want to give blood to these gringos who came. And so the only way I could get the population to cooperate with us is to play on the turnout and play for the local football team or soccer team. And I played, I played a season with a team called Padua in the Mexican League. And once I played for Padua and represented the city of Tlaxcala, then we had a full sample. People trusted us and came in. So I said before, I sacrificed my shins for science in that case. And among the people who worked with us in Tlaxcala, these are 3 people from University of Pittsburgh that came, which is where I started the work. Bob Halberstein, the one on the extreme left, who went on and became professor at University of Miami, and then Paul Schuley, who became chair and professor at Ohio State University, and Patricia Pajibowski, who went on to she got her PhD actually in genetics and became the director of a very large database. And also then we went to Quanalan, the first transplanted population, and again, Halberstein's there, Frank Lees is on the extreme right, and you have in the middle, showing little horns, David Buscha. You wouldn't believe this, but he retired just last year as a distinguished professor of physiology at Wake Forest University. Who would have predicted it, seeing this slide? And then we worked in Saltillo, Mexico in '74, and the person in the back, I wish I could get this to work properly. The person in the back, I'm still having, no, just if I can get show me which to press? This one, this red one. The red one, okay, thank you. And you probably recognize this one, okay, the tall one, Dennis O'Rourke, and yours truly, and this is Eileen Mulher, and poor Eileen died of a stroke recently, she's gone, and also Renan del Barco died a few years back, and his daughter, you probably have heard, if you ever listen to NPR, you've heard her over and over again. She won all sorts of awards. This is Mandalit del Barco, a very famous reporter who does Los Angeles. Okay, let's see. And also this person you probably recognize, measuring in Belize. He was one of the team of about 12 of us in Belize. And also I worked with the 1970 with the Irish Tinkers, and they are a group who have lifestyle very similar to Romany gypsies. They travel in these painted wagons all over Ireland, but the question that I posed was, are they Romanis or are they Irish in their origins? And we were able to demonstrate that they were Irish, displaced by the potato famine and all the other problems that they had. Okay, and then continuation of field work. I worked with Eskimos, Inuit of Alaska, Siberia, looking at peopling of the Americas, Newfoundland fishing villages, 81 to 83, Mennonites from 1979 to 2019, looking at biological aging and population structure. And I have NSF funded the first one, Wenegren, NIH. Tiszahat in Hungary, a Hungarian population made into 24 villages, sort of isolated from the rest of Hungary by the Tisza River. And this was funded by Earthwatch. I only did it once, and I said I'd never do it again. They're mainly people who pay to get this experience, and we had some real interesting people. Anyway, Siberian indigenous populations and the Aleutian Islands, and we've sampled 11 of the Aleutian Islands over the years. And Dennis and I did the ancient DNA, and I did the contemporary populations. Also, as far as Siberia is concerned, we started off next to Siberia on St. Lawrence Island, and this is flying in to Savunga on St. Lawrence Island, and this is very short distance from Siberia, and this is in June. So it was pretty chilly there throughout the study. In terms of the people who participated in these studies, I mentioned Bob Halberstein, or known affectionately as Chick Hall. Paul Lynn, Bob is retired. Paul Lynn was at the University of Chicago, Wichita State. I think he died. Linda Kleppinger retired from Illinois. Frank Lees retired from the American Museum of Natural History. Marty Nichols retired from Illinois State. Ken Turner died of a heart attack, was in Alabama. Stuart Shermas died at Long Beach. Pam Byard was probably one of my most talented students ever. She got tenure at Case Western Reserve and then quit academia entirely and was doing yoga and was teaching yoga last time I saw her. Paul Schuley I mentioned. Randy David, who's now doing, he's just moved to Berkeley. Janice Hutchinson at Houston, she just retired. Ann Justus, who's around here somewhere. At Geisinger, Lorena Madrigal, who's here as well. At South Florida, Dennis O'Rourke. Robert Baum, who's at Connecticut, retired. Laureen Rogers at Iowa State, retired. Meredith Utley, who's chair at Lander University. She did a lot of the work on the Mennonites. Joe McComb went to and is working for Merck. Tony Camuzzi, whoever he is, Obesity Society. Ravi Dugirala, Texas A&M. Jeff Williams. Now, is he still at University of Texas Medical Center, or has he moved? Okay. Anyway, and Rector Aria, who's here at also University of Texas A&M. And the last batch, and I won't go any further, of students, David Buscha, he's the one that was making horns on the Cultural Anthropologist, of course. He just retired as a distinguished professor of physiology at Wake Forest. Vicky Enciso, who became a genetic specialist. Shoba at Wake Forest. Carrie North, who I think is with us in North Carolina. Lisa Martin, University of Cincinnati. Subsag Sirijaraya, who died, he had a heart attack. MJ Mosier's here. Christine Beatty, I think, is here. Delisa Phillips, I haven't seen, and so forth. Norberto Baldi Salas, who actually is translating into Spanish my latest book. Michael Baumschad, who's the head of pediatrics at the University of Washington. He came with an MD. Phil Melton is in Perth, Australia. Gita, who's with us. Chris Young, the University of North Carolina. Jay Sarthy at UW. And some of these people came, like Sarthy, Baumschad came to me through genetics. Doug Hubelacher, Mark Zloutro. I wish he had kept his name, Zloutra, which is actually a more interesting name. His grandmother was Serbian, and she was sitting there after an attack in the war, and somebody came along and asked her, how's it going, old lady? Why are you crying? And she said, Zloutra. Translation means, zlo means evil or bad, and utra means morning. And so they got this name from that experience of sitting there and complaining about the war. And Rowena Rubitz is a writer now. Jassim Tayyab is at Kuwait University, and Melody Ratcliffe Wood, I don't know where she is. Maybe some of you can tell me. Okay, we worked in Newfoundland, in the outports, and we collaborated with a Russian team in Novosibirsk. This is Sukernik, Rem Israelovich Sukernik, and this lady, Tatiana Karafet, did a postdoc with me some years ago. She's, I think, in Arizona now. Very good scientist. And this, you can see, is actually probably the only photograph of MHC with a mustache. And this is in Novosibirsk. And I had just finished working in Mexico, and I still have the Guayabera. And so there I am. Okay, now, we worked in Siberia. We worked in Evenkia, or this area right here in central Siberia, where the lower Tunguska River, Polygus, Surinda. We also worked with the Kets over here, the Evenki, and I did a study on Mendelssohn in the Altai, and more recently worked on Kamchatka. So pretty well covered a good part of Siberia. We also, how do you get to these places? There are no roads, so question is, how do you get to them? Well, airplanes is about it, and helicopters. And so this particular, we were the first Americans at that time to come into this area. And the pilots were quite pleased with having the first Americans coming. And they even arranged for a little buffet dinner. I don't know if you remember, Bill. A dinner on the floor of the plane. Yours truly was, because I speak Russian, I was put next to the pilot. And so I could chat away with the pilot. And as we flew, the pilot said, wouldn't you like to take control of the plane? I said, I've never flown a plane in my life, in Russia. And he said, oh, it's easy. Here, let me show you. And so I took over the plane, and the people in the back, the whole research group was turning pretty white or green color from my flying. But he fortunately took over the plane just before landing, and I didn't have to try to land. And we also, in Evenkia, this is the chief, the head man, and they had a dinner for us when we arrived in Surinda. And you can see somebody here. Tony is here. Sukernik, who's smashing mosquitoes off his forehead. His mistress, yours truly, with a net. And I had an extra hat with a net that I offered to Sukernik, and he said, don't let it bother you. Smash, as he's bleeding, blood running down his face. And we were offered these pirashki, which my mother used to make, which is usually made of ground beef in deep fried dough, sourdough. And so I loved pirashki. I bit into one of them, and kind of chewy, kind of grimy, gristly taste to them. I asked the chief, what's in them? And he said, oh, we use the lungs of the reindeer. And that was the last time I had, do you remember, Tony? And that was the last time I had pierogi there. Okay, let's see. And reindeer herder. When we first arrived and they didn't really know what to do with us as far as meals are concerned. And so they slaughtered a reindeer in our honor. And me being the senior person, I was offered raw heart of the reindeer. And I said, well, in Russian, I'm somewhat dyspeptic. I can't handle raw heart. But my guys, Tony and Bill, just love heart. And so there they were sitting on the log, eating raw heart. And I asked Bill, how does it taste? And Bill said, oh, it's more like bubble gum, chewing it with blood running out of his, yeah. Anyway, not a problem. They're both with us still. Okay, this is a reindeer herder. And here are Tony and Bill and myself, and we're tasting, and Elena Starakovskaya, who is Sukernik's mistress, tasting the local brew. And again, there's Tony Camuzzi and Bill Leonard, and Rem down there with his KU sweatshirt. We also, on our way back, stopped at a small isolated community, Old Believers, which is a small religious isolate group that escaped from central Russia when Orthodoxy was accepted by the Russians. And the Old Believers hid out because they don't believe, they're pacifists, they don't believe in many things. And so here their sign is "My za mir," we're for peace. And there's another group of Old Believers in Oregon that I've done some work with. And this is Gorno Altai, yours truly, after being served some fermented milk, horrible stuff. And in India, when we started the project, you'll recognize a few people. Okay, there's Rector, and there's Shobha. I don't remember this lady's name. Was that? Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember. And this is Ravi's father. Okay, and yours truly at the airport and Peter Newt, who was with me. I was in a Fulbright fellowship at the time, but Peter came as well. He was a professor at University of Washington in Seattle and died tragically of a brain tumor. And he and Tibor Kurtovayeshi and I, all three of us got cancer because we were exposed to irradiation at Chernobyl. Most likely. We can't prove cause and effect, but that's a likely explanation. And Joe McComb, some of you may recognize Joe. He's at Merck. He's working on DNA fingerprints for Siberian populations. And Beata Ptsibuya, who's a postdoc from Warsaw. We published on genetics of voice acoustics. This is Sandy Bay, St. Vincent Island, where we studied hypertension. And this is where the Garifuna, or black carobs, originally came from. And the person who worked with me on that was Janice Hutchinson. She got her degree here and then went on to teach at Houston University, and she just retired this year. And Earthwatch project in Tisahat. Okay, this is Rosalind Harding, who is a professor at Oxford, and Peter Newt, and Katya, and some of the other participants that were there. And this is Tibor, mobbed by Hungarian graduate students in Tisahat. he was very popular because he spoke Hungarian, I didn't, and so he was very, very popular among the young ladies. And finishing up slowly, we're just about done, in case you were wondering. This is a photograph that Dennis O'Rourke took of baboons, Papia hamadryas, from a free-ranging variety outside of Sukhumi, Abkhazia. Dennis and Bob Baum did their dissertation research on this. We were looking at, I was interested more in that this particular population of baboons had an epidemic, believe it or not, of lymphoma, malignant lymphoma. I was asked by the National Cancer Institute to find out why and how, and they basically gave us a contract to work with them and funded Dennis and Bob Baum. And there was, they were inoculated with human leukemic cells, and we all assumed that that was the reason why they all came down with lymphoma. It was a pretty large population. However, a recent study looking at the DNA has shown that the particular virus that caused the lymphoma was not a baboon virus, but was in fact a macaque, and that this was an example of interspecies transmission. Okay. And this is someone I think I know, a younger, less gray hair, Ravi, taking fingerprints, and you can see how excited this young lady is by having her fingerprints taken. Okay, this is, we set up a twin registry here. The Mennonites project, looking at biological aging and genetic structure of the Mennonites of Kansas and Nebraska. And this is another one some of you may know, Phil Milton, who's now at university, in one of Western Australian University. And then we did a study on the Aleutian Islands where we sampled 11 island populations. And here is yours truly, together with, this is, oops, damn. Anyway, this is Mark. Now he calls himself Kos because he married an Australian woman. I don't think she could pronounce Zlo Utra, and so he's become, and she became Mrs. Kos. And this is in False Pass in the Aleutian Islands, together with Liza Mack, who was a Aleut graduate student who worked with us, and started a project in Chihuahua, and you probably recognize a few people here, and this is Tom Weaver, a close colleague of mine, and my ex-racquetball partner. And finally, as far as starting a study in Chihuahua on tuberculosis, M.J. Mosier and Bart Dean started the project. And the final shot is, this is the latest generation of graduate students from the University of Kansas. Some of you recognize them. Phil Milton is there. Okay, Rowena, Anne, and Chris Beatty. So, we've done a lot of work over 50 years, and I think it's essential to do good field work in order to be able to answer various evolutionary questions under different conditions and using history as we did for the Tlaxcaltecan population, adding a time dimension. So I think I'll stop here, and if there, we're probably over the limit, but anyway. I never could do that, Robbie. Okay. I guess I better stop and let somebody else come on.
We are very, very proud of you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Robbie.
For everything, for everything you have done for all of us.
Well,
Thank you so much.
I tried to do what I was interested in, so.
Thank you so much. Dear friends, was that not amazing? How many anthropologists are there like him around the world? You know, it's a true honor and privilege for all of us to be his students, you know. And there is a slight change in the program. Next, actually, Dr. Tony Camuzzi, you know, he will be chairing the next session. However, there is only one talk before coffee break. So let us take coffee break, then we will start the session. And before you go for coffee break, please, all of you come here. Let us have a photograph, you know, with Dr. Crawford. You know, it's a great occasion. It will be forever remembered.